And next speech will be delivered by Dmitry Serebryannikov, who is PT director for analyzing level of protection. So I hope the weather is great. Weather is sunny here. Yeah, I guess sunny summer days. Yeah, we've just been talking to Constantine, and he is connecting from Romania. He was saying, well, it's the last day of summer, it's a sunny day, and I found myself hard-pressed to come up, with a positive answer to this. But we do have a serious discussion, because we will be talking about risk verification. Shall we start with a definition? How would you define information security risks? And how they are related to the cyber battle raging here at the standoff. All companies are afraid of something. It could be financial losses or reputation risks, or business stoppage, or theft of customer data. And it is these events that we usually call information security risks. These are catastrophic events for business that may happen. Actually, we have engineered quite a lot of risks like this in our cyber range, and many of them have already been triggered. These are cases from real life. They denote things that adversaries can actually pull off in the real world. Well, and is it really a veritable replica of what happens in real life? Will many companies have similar business risk? Absolutely. If a company becomes mature enough, or when it becomes mature enough in the field of cybersecurity, it realizes that some events should be avoided pretty much at all costs. And in order to learn whether they can happen or cannot, they will use risk verification tools. Well, let's talk then about risk verification. What is it and how does it work? Well, all in all, risk verification is a complex philosophy. It's, if you like, a top-down approach, because when we talk about corporate risks, it's important to remember that we are looking at the operations of the company as a whole, as opposed to, say, a single division. We are talking here about the business and the people interested in the business running smoothly. I'm referring here to business owners, top management, board of directors. They usually get to see the big picture, so they can define the key risks they consider most relevant. Obviously, some risks will be common, such as theft of money, but, for example, there will be some industrial risks. Loss of customer private data would be another type of common risks. And actually, in a risk verification exercise, we try to show that they are realistic. And how do you do that? I mean, you just said that, but what does that imply? Well, I'm sorry, what does that imply? Some teams here have been doing it for 5 days. And they've been discharging toxic gases, and they've been dropping the Ferris wheel. Real life is no different from the standoff in this respect, because in real life, we always make it, just like here. It's important for companies not to lose heart and to keep remembering that, it's best for them to learn it in an exercise as opposed to real life, and obviously up their defenses. We are using all the tools at our disposal. It's a technical and pen testing and social engineering and, Wi-Fi from an uncontrolled area and so on and so forth. And the main objective here, obviously, is those risks. The current trend, obviously, is about attacking remote workers. Well, because so many companies have deployed, VPN services and what have you, and many of them are vulnerable. We've made our contribution, by the way. We have found quite a lot of zero-day vulnerabilities in Palo Alto, Cisco, Citrix, and other devices. By the way, we've just been talking to Vasily Tamilin about his zero-day program. He's obviously with Cisco. Yes, we have been working with Cisco, among others. So all this helps us penetrate the perimeter in a short time frame and then gain the foothold. By the way, phishing campaigns still work. Corporate employees are ecstatic. They are more than happy to open the attachments and enter their data. Sure, if the message has arrived, it must be read. And if you're asked to provide your credentials, obviously you must do that. Since offices are empty now, most employees are working remotely, the Wi-Fi attack vector is less relevant, because previously you could do a drive-by attack, with a trained, powerful antenna, but now you can no longer do that. So this vector is sort of dormant, although, previously it was such a reliable attack vector. So our statistics shows that it is extremely easy to penetrate the perimeter and gain access to the internal networks. Now, you said that previously you could actually attack via the Wi-Fi, and now you cannot use this attack vector. What else has changed, and how are your activities now different because of COVID? Well, we are now using more remote access tools. Well, previously, there were companies that didn't really have to open access channels to the internal network to a large crowd of employees. So those companies didn't really use VPNs much, or virtual workstations and so on. Now most corporations have them, and the trend now is that they are being used and vulnerabilities are being looked for and found. So penetrating the perimeter has become easier than before. So now that employees are using their home PCs and home devices, yeah, obviously, protection of home-based devices is a separate challenge, and it is very difficult for the corporation to monitor it at all. So if employees, will connect to their corporate network using their personal devices, this will endanger the corporate network even more. And coming back to risk verification, who, in your opinion, should be on top of this risk list? Are we talking, say, 300 or more risks? Well, the risk register is usually developed by those who understand the business of the company inside out. Usually, these are the top-ranking employees, like the CEO and the C-suite. Sure, because the whole company is being analyzed there, and usually it takes being a top manager to understand what the whole company should be concerned about. Well, because things that are considered inadmissible for the IT division, where, say, a particular server goes down, I mean, it's a catastrophe for the IT department, but the other parts of the company probably won't even notice it. But if you have a ransomware raging, or, whatever, Tesla crypt raging, this will be a problem for the whole company. So I guess all companies will have common risks, common top-tier risks, but also some industrial and special risks. So we do run those risk registers, and we know from experience that in a particular industry, customers often underestimate the importance of certain risks, which means that you know from practice which risks are most critical in a given industry, and you build your knowledge base. Absolutely, that's how we do it. We are always happy to build on this knowledge base and to share this knowledge with our customers, who may think that, there are risks A, B, and C they should be particularly concerned about, and then we come in and tell them, have you thought about D? What about standoff? Is this knowledge of various risk types leveraged here at the standoff? Oh, sure, absolutely. So the risks you are seeing here in the standoff being triggered, these are the classical risks. Classical for the particular industries. Okay, and what kind of scenarios do you think I'll be used in order to trigger these risks? Well, they may come in all sorts and shapes, all sizes and shapes, I'm sorry. If we are looking at different stages, for example, now stage one will involve penetrating the perimeter, and there can be different scenarios employed there. It could be a zero-day vulnerability or a phishing letter, or you can just brute force the credentials. In the second step, when you're already inside the perimeter as an adversary, this will involve lat moves to a target server or a group of servers running the software you want to attack. For example, this could be an internet banking solution if you want to defraud money. But if you want to endanger business continuity, that would be, for example, an operator's workstation running SCADA system. So much really depends on the particular risk in question. So there is no single attack vector for all the risks. It's impossible.
So the beginning for each risk is very similar. Penetration through the perimeter, some perimeter means which are easy to overcome because everybody is working remotely. And then they can travel inside of the infrastructure the way they like to. And we shouldn't forget that there are risks which do not require overcoming the perimeter. For example, the risk of forging the main site, which leads to reputation losses when the main site of the company is being broken and something bad is published there. Or when they brute force the passwords for top managers' emails. And right now the email is available from outside. You can get connected and read mail. This is also a risk which does not require penetration inside. Out of your experience, how the top management of the company, where we've been speaking about CEOs, top managers, how do they understand that one should work not just by adding +1% for purchase of the antivirus or the box to place, because it's supposed to be like that, but we should understand that it's different approach. We should look at the personal fears related with work. Do you see this understanding in their eyes? The trend is moving towards the improvement from this point of view, because we see more and more companies understanding that they need real security. Not just for the check mark, not just putting the report in the table, but they want to really understand what might happen and which events they don't want to happen. So we feel the interest and involvement from the owners of businesses to make business more safe. From this point of view, the trend is moving in this direction, and this is nice to see, because we are for real security and not for just moving papers from table to table, but it makes you talk in a language understandable to those people, not just like, well, I will look at your admin side through the shell, some exploit, 1, 2, 3. But the requirements to the analytical researchers who do the defense analysis of the client, these requirements are totally different, much higher, of course. These risks are understandable to everyone, and achievability of the risks, this is understandable matrix. When we're just speaking about the pen testing, which could be the KPIs, number of vulnerabilities at the external perimeter, number of vectors overcoming the external perimeter. But this is wonderful that companies know about it. They cover these risks, but this is not really understandable matrix for the business. It's much more understandable for the business when the business says that there is an event which shouldn't happen. Not a lovable event. Not a lovable event. And then they're being told that, well, you see, they might happen in your company. And it's understandable to everybody. It's not a technical level. Without complicated words and terms, everything can be stolen for money. Everything is understandable. If I properly understand, all big companies today have security operations center. either outsourced or insourced. All the companies make pen tests. And basically, this is a common paradigm, understandable and forecastable. Is there a significant difference between risk verification, the approach that we have just discussed, and the paradigm which is common for everybody? Well, of course, there is a difference. As we've been saying, the difference is in objectives. Plus, the difference is that risk verification is more applicable for the companies with mature level of security, when the company has its own security operations center, processes. And in the process of these operations, we actively are being defended by the SOC of the client. We're being banned, we're being blocked, servers are being disconnected. So there is a full-scale resistance, like right now on a standoff between defenders and attackers. Do you see what happens at the standoff? Your guys see that? Yes, we look at the reports from the attackers, and we have to understand that in any case, break through the perimeter, nobody's protected from this. And availability of new zero-day vulnerability, nobody's protected from this. You have to understand that at a certain moment of time, perimeter will be hacked by the hackers, and it's a common fact. The understanding, people should have this understanding. But we think it's very realistic to do it in such a way so that even overcoming the perimeter, these events which shouldn't happen, non-acceptable events, will not happen. We should raise the level of security to such a level, and we will teach the SOC so that criminal will be immediately cleared from the system. Because the approach is changing, especially if we're speaking about penetration testing. We're overcoming the perimeter, then we go to the domain controller, and SOC and security guys, they understand the vector of the attack, where pen tester is going to go. But when we speak about risk verification, we could have risks which are not related to any classical endpoints. For example, the risk of mail reading from the top managers. You should overcome the perimeter for that. You can simply brute force the password from outside. Or the chief accountant's computer. You shouldn't run to the domain controller. We should get to specific computer. In other words, the approach is changing, different, and it's not a typical situation for the SOC and for the security guys. So the verification is much more complicated and well thought through attack, which leads to specific objectives and risks. So upon the agreement with the clients, we can transfer money from the account to account verification, or push certain button, and we bring it to some specific cases where you can see that the event is realistic, and if it will happen, it's going to be very, very bad. Dima, it's a common thing to believe that security is a process. It is a common thing to believe that everybody's going to be broken. Also, they say that there is no 100% defense. Tell me, please, is the risk-based model or risk verification model is something different which may move this paradigm of those statements and be able to answer them? As I've told you, it makes no difficulty to break into any company, to well-known pen tester or to clever hacker. But when we have a risk-oriented approach and when we have clearly defined risks, then running in their direction, it might be difficult, and it may complicate the way to the fraudster. It can make it so long It's not simply that person came into the perimeter and did something, but we clearly understand that if we are afraid of losing our cash, we need to do this in these procedures. We should extend this way for the hacker. We should segment these transfers in such a way so that we would clearly know that even if somebody will break in, he will definitely go this particular way and not the other way. So you can make him a path, and it's going to be the only path available through which he will be able to move down to this risk. And then we will sit and look when he appears. And if he will start moving in this direction, we could immediately stop it, and we will not let him to get to the end point. So there is no 100% security, and we have to understand that in current realities, criminal may enter the infrastructure of the company, and this might happen. However, we clearly understand that you can complicate his life so much that he will not be able to run to the end point. It's better to leave than to get to the end point. Well, the final question. Let's assume that risks are understood. Let's assume that they are verified and they have understood that all the risks can be realized. Like at our petrochemical factory, no matter how we verify those risks, because it was steaming poisonous gases 5 times since the beginning of our standoff. So we've discovered risks. What should we do about it? First of all, we shouldn't get disappointed. Don't panic. According to our experience, when the company does the risk verification for the first time, most of the risks have a way for verification, and you should be ready for transformation of the whole company. Because when we speak about risks influencing the whole company, it means that all divisions should be involved. These shouldn't be just IS people, but also IT guys, segmentation, dividing business segments by networking process. So if the whole company starts transforming in the proper direction, then next time you can run to 1 single risk or 2 single risk, and in such iterational way, by tightening the system, by tuning up the security paradigm in the direction of risk-oriented approach, you can do it in such a way so that no single risk will be achievable. So you can achieve level of protection which top manager requires. You can do it in such a way so that the failure of the business or natural cataclysm or maybe catastrophes at his factory, they can be avoided. Of course, it is possible, but certain time will be required for this and resources. Well, this is more comforting news, and I understand the point B. And it's understandable that it exists. Thank you very much for the interview. Thank you very much for telling me about business risks. Verify reports. So that all this knowledge that you will acquire from there, you would use for the whole community to defend our clients in a better way. Thank you very much. Thank you.